Hi, and welcome to today's episode of the 10-Minute Hemp CEO podcast. Today, I have Tom Paskett. Tom is from the Utah Cannabis Association. It's a trade group representing the interests of the cannabis industry in Utah, and they work mostly in the government affairs and B2B realms. Thanks for joining us today, Tom.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's just dive into the question. What does your association do for its members?
Really, we advocate on behalf of their interests to the state and local governments. Those of us in the association and those who formed it, we're all instrumental in bringing medical cannabis to Utah as a legal alternative to patients. So the next logical step was to help facilitate the industry in meeting those patients' needs. And so we formed the association and are using the relationships and the reputation and the experience that we garnered in the fight to legalize to continue to help make a better legal regulatory environment here for the industry.
How many people do you have in your association? When did you start? Are you the founder?
I'm not the founder. My friends are all the founders, but the association, I believe, was officially formed back in January, so right before Utah's legislative session got underway. We're knocking on the door of about 25 total members right now, so we're still kind of fledgling, but those memberships, they run the gamut of the spectrum. We've got hemp farmers, just local folks who are trying their hand at hemp for the first time, as well as some of the bigger regional players in the area who are already established in other states. We also have folks in the association who represent what we consider sort of the ancillary areas of the industry. So lawyers, CPAs, insurance agents, anybody who might service the industry in some way. We like to have a connection with them so that we can broaden our network and help our members even more.
Let me ask you about the hemp farmers. Now, how many of hemp farmers do you have? And what are you exactly doing for them? A lot of this association I talk to around the country say, hey, look, we would like to set you up on 1 to 2 acres. Here's a number of sources for seeds. Here's the process.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do with the farmers. Folks here are obviously fairly new to the hemp industry. These are folks who are coming from growing alfalfa and all sorts of other crops that we're more familiar with. So there's a steep learning curve for some of these folks, and we're primarily trying to help educate those particular constituents of our association by putting them in touch with reputable consultants. That's a battle that I've been fighting all year, sort of elbowing out some of these, I call them just bad actors. I put them on kind of a naughty list as folks have experiences with them and they come out negative. So helping to facilitate the right relationships between the farmers who need education and all the help they can get to grow a successful crop and the folks who know how to do that.
With these hemp farmers, did you find some good sources like seeds and education? Did you find some good ones?
Yeah, we have. And a lot of them come from, honestly, our existing relationships through the fight to legalize from years past. Folks who we brought in from other states to help consult on the policy and lawmaking side of things as Utah was exploring the legalization landscape, and their expertise just continues to be useful. So we've put them in touch with some of our green hemp folks, hopefully, to help them do as well as possible in the long run. Education, I've found is probably one of the best silver bullets, I think, for our industry here in Utah. The more people know, the better they can be in their business. So,
right. But now, what are you telling about? Do you have customers lined up for them, or are you still reaching out, trying to find out who's going to buy their crops?
Oh yeah, that's probably another major thing that we've been doing this year is helping those farmers find processors who will process their plant, and in most cases help with the sale of those products as well. Early this summer, I'd say myself and one of our staff became inundated with phone calls from local hemp farmers. Some of them nervous about their plants going hot, going above the 0.3% threshold, but a lot of them also just saying, I think I grew a pretty good plant and I've tested within the legal limits. What's next? So these folks, took a leap of faith, and frankly, or happily, we were there to help point them in the right directions. Whether there were, in-state sources for processing, of which there are several, or out of state. Some of our local farmers have wanted to explore the, I think, less financially avenue of maybe selling raw hemp flower. And we can't do that in Utah, but we do have connections outside of the state where they can legally sell that.
Is there anything that they're saying, hey, we started growing this and it looks like it's going to be more profitable to us? Have you discovered anything like that?
Like as far as like different strains or cultivars?
Yeah, different strains, different cultures. Like, A lot of these farmers seem to find their own processes that work better for them, for their crop or their the soil that they have in Utah versus Arizona or in Kentucky.
Yeah, we've actually worked in conjunction with the Department of Agriculture a little bit to round up some of the best strains or cultivars that have done well here in Utah. And it always brings a kind of a smile to my face because the two leaders this year were a strain called Trump and another one called Stormy Daniels.
Ah! This is going to go into the tape. Yeah.
But our farmers were growing a wide variety. Some of them are the usual suspects. Cherry wine is a very popular one. It's kind of an easy sort of entry level strain, I would call. Yeah, we've had some pretty decent success with a variety of strains here in Utah.
And have you found a good source for seeds for these genetics?
That has been a little bit problematic, and in fact, I've been involved in some disputes with some of the seed banks that have done business here in Utah. I think we have gotten in front of that problem for the most part. Weeding out some of the less reputable sources has been a full-time job.
What does that look like? You get too many male seeds, or the genetics don't match up to what they say they are?
Yeah, exactly. For instance, we had one farmer, I think down south, if I recall correctly, who the seeds that he and his operation got, once they started poking through the ground, they discovered that upwards of 50% of them were males. And for this little operation, that was, those males are worthless to them. It was a huge hit to their bottom line.
Do they have any recourse?
If there are contracts in place, yeah, they can go to court. I know of at least a couple that are pursuing legal action for things like this. But unfortunately, some of these deals were made kind of on a handshake basis, or they were made between friends of the family or whatever. So not all the T's were crossed and I's dotted, so to speak, which makes it a little bit more difficult to pursue legal action. On top of the difficulty of this being an industry that's just kind of highly scrutinized and met with skepticism.
So what's the goal for the association? I mean, do you want to become 500 members, 1,000 members with, hundreds and hundreds of farms, or what?
I would love to see hundreds of farmers involved with the association. The long-term goal, I tell people, is to have a strong voice in the public sector and in the government sector. This is an industry that's been criminal for 80 years or so, right? And there's a long way to go in convincing the powers that be, our legislators, our lawmakers, to open the doors as widely as they ought to be, honestly, to be able to fully explore the potential of this plant. We're only scratching the surface, and I think that the best way to open up the potential of this is to create laws that either incentivize or help, at least, the industry to explore those options. So, stimulating R&D, stimulating just the growth of industrial hemp across the state. We've got to have the biomass in order to experiment with it first. But yeah, that's.
Well, you guys took a long time to allow alcohol in airports, right?
That's weird.
What does winning look like for your association members? I mean, making money for their family is priority number one, right?
Right. So the success of the farming industry is priority number one. The long-term goal, I've told friends, I would love to see Utah hemp become a sort of an industry standard. We've got a lot of land here in Utah and a lot of gung-ho farmers and entrepreneurs who, Utah is a very industrious state. We've got a great environment here, culturally, socially, and as far as the actual climate goes, for exploring this industry. And as long as we can, like I said, incentivize and help to cultivate the industry, we can be a leader in the nation. But it's a matter of opening those doors and helping guide those who are willing to take the risk of experimenting with a new plant. Make that happen. We need to talk to our legislators and show them that this is real.
Tom, I want to thank you. We've run out of time. 10 minutes goes by really fast. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tom Paskett with the Utah Cannabis Association.